Ever get that feeling? Yeah, like there's got to be more to this whole money thing. Like you've got big dreams, but looking at your bank account, it's just not painting the same picture.
Yeah, that's a powerful place to start. That kind of questioning can really push you to explore, well, different paths.
And that's what we're all about here on the Deep Dive. And one of you listeners sent in something that really caught our eye. Excerpts from The Millionaire Fastlane, a book by MJ DeMarco. Not just some random blog. This thing's got, like, a P.O. box in Phoenix, an ISBN, the whole 9 yards. Even shouts out to people like Cakes and Michelle Hirsch and the whole Fastlane forum crew.
Sounds structured, like a whole philosophy around building wealth.
You got it. And today we're going to break down the core of it, specifically these different roadmaps to wealth that the author lays out, especially how this whole fast lane idea differs from the traditional stuff we're always told.
So, cutting through the noise and giving our listeners the key distinctions between these approaches.
Exactly. Think of it as your cheat sheet, you know? We did the heavy lifting so you can get right to the good stuff without getting bogged down.
Love that. Efficiency is key.
Right. Now, the author, MJ DeMarco, he's presented as, like, a regular guy, but here's the kicker. First million by 31, retired at 37. And he's talking about financial freedom from investments globally. Pretty different from the get-rich-slow advice that's everywhere.
Definitely throws a wrench in the whole decades of work before freedom thing.
No kidding. And get this, only debt he's got is his mortgage. Says he can buy whatever he wants, doesn't even look at the price tag anymore. Plus, he's got hobbies galore. Tennis, golf, art, traveling, even writing. Sounds like a life with serious freedom, you know?
Paints quite a picture. So where do we start with all this?
Okay, so the book jumps right in with this thing called the Lamborghini prophecy. What's the deal with that?
It all comes back to a moment, one of those seemingly small things that shifts your whole perspective. For the author, it was, as a teenager, seeing a Lamborghini Countach talking to the owner. And the owner just says, "I'm an inventor."
Not some Wall Street tycoon or trust fund kid.
Yeah.
Just an inventor.
And that sparks the question, right? Maybe wealth isn't just about this long, slow grind. Maybe there's a way to speed things up by, well, creating something valuable.
Which, as a teenager, completely blew his mind. Instead of this 50-year plan of working, saving every penny, being super frugal, and just praying the stock market goes your way.
Exactly. He sees this Lamborghini, and it just shatters that whole get-rich-slow mentality. And for him, that contrast becomes the core problem. So much reliance on time on Wall Street.
Right, like sacrificing your best years, the years you've got the most energy, just waiting for some distant maybe of financial freedom.
It really makes you question if that traditional path is even worth it, right? Like by the time you're supposedly rich, are you even going to have the energy to enjoy it?
Heavy stuff. Okay, so then the book introduces these 3 financial roadmaps. What's the big picture here?
So imagine everyone's on one of these 3 roads, each with its own wealth equation, leading to a different destination. There's the sidewalk, the slow lane, and the fast lane.
Let's break it down. Starting with the sidewalk, what's the deal there?
It's all about that instant gratification, impulsive, not really thinking about tomorrow. And that, according to the book, is what repels wealth. Instead, you end up depending on others, whether it's taxpayers, your boss, your family.
Basically, living for the moment, consequences be damned.
Exactly. And you can spot it with these sidewalk symptoms, right? Living paycheck to paycheck, drowning in debt, always justifying those splurges with life is short.
Oh, we've all heard that one.
Yeah.
But why doesn't this sidewalk thing work in the long run?
Because you're trading your future for today, basically. One little bump in the road, recession, job loss, whatever, and you're completely screwed.
And as we all know, life throws plenty of those bumps our way.
Yeah.
The book also mentions how sidewalkers tend to blame everyone else for their financial problems, rather.
It's that whole lack of accountability thing. While unexpected stuff happens, constantly being in financial trouble, it usually comes back to the choices you're making.
So, taking ownership of your situation is crucial. And the book's pretty clear. The sidewalk ain't going to get you rich unless you're banking on winning the lottery or some surprise inheritance.
Which, let's be real, are terrible financial plans.
No argument there. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The book redefines wealth. It's not just about the money, right?
It goes deeper. Strong family, community involvement, making a real difference in the world. The book even mentions It's a Wonderful Life to show how valuable those things are.
So it's not just about the zeros in your account.
Not at all. True wealth is about feeling fulfilled, having purpose, connecting with the world around you.
The author even talks about selling his company, getting this huge chunk of money and thinking he was set. But then, with his spending habits and the market doing its thing, that wealth vanished fast. It shows the difference between having cash and actually building lasting wealth.
A good reminder that money, without the right mindset, can disappear faster than you think.
So, true wealth, according to the book, is about buying things outright, no financing needed. He even gives the example of buying his brother a Lexus, straight up, with a cashier's check.
That's financial power right there. Freedom to make choices without being beholden to anyone.
And then there's this idea, who misuse money, and money will misuse you right back. The book tackles that whole money doesn't buy happiness thing head on.
By asking, does poverty? The author introduces this concept of lifestyle servitude, where you're constantly chasing that instant gratification, spending to feel good, but it ends up owning you, like overeating leading to obesity or financing stuff you can't afford.
So it's like that pursuit of stuff ends up enslaving you instead of setting you free. Now, what about luck? Because the book has a pretty different take on that, too.
It flips the script. Luck isn't some random event. It's a result of what you do. Putting in the work, being proactive, putting yourself out there. The book quotes Mark Cuban saying something like, process creates luck.
So you increase your chances of good things happening, instead of just waiting for them to fall in your lap. Quite different from the Sidewalker's whole hoping to get lucky thing.
Night and day, really.
Which brings us to those get-rich-quick schemes we see everywhere. How do those fit into the Sidewalk picture?
They prey on that event mentality, that promise of effortless overnight riches. And as the book points out, the ones really getting rich are the ones selling the system, not the people buying into it.
Makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
Now, this idea of victimitis, taking responsibility for your finances, that's big in this book.
Huge. It uses this example of a guy, Eugene, working at Walmart, blaming the system for his low wages. And while, yeah, bigger issues exist, you still have to take ownership. Improve your skills, your value,
So it's about focusing on what you can control, not just the things you can't.
Exactly. And this applies to scams, too. Do your research. Don't blindly trust anyone with your money.
Due diligence is key. The book also talks about the politics of hitchhiking. Those sidewalkers expecting the government to take care of everything, voting for whoever promises the most free stuff.
Versus driving, which is about making your own financial decisions, being in control. The author predicted the housing bust back in 2005, and that's presented as an example of this.
It's about thinking for yourself, taking responsibility for your choices. And the book makes this distinction between responsibility and accountability, right?
Accountability goes deeper. It's not just acknowledging something happened. It's owning the consequences and learning from your mistakes, changing your behavior so you don't repeat them.
So it's about action, not just words. Okay, so we've covered the Sidewalk. What about the next roadmap, the Slowlane?
The Slowlane is like Sidewalk 2.0. You're responsible, accountable, but it's still got problems. The biggest one, the time it takes to get rich. By the time you get there, you might not even have the health or energy to enjoy it. The book puts it pretty bluntly. Wheelchairs don't fit in Lamborghinis.
Ouch, but point taken. And there's the whole corporate ladder thing too, right? Years of navigating office politics and hoping for that promotion.
Years, decades even. The book talks about the 5-for-2 trade. 5 days of work for 2 days of freedom. Saturday and Sunday become your paycheck for surviving the week.
And it highlights that this trade, this giving up most of your time for money, is basically non-negotiable in the slow lane.
Pretty much, you're stuck in that cycle. And the destination, the book calls it mediocrity. It's not horrible, but it's not great either, just existing.
And then you have all those classic slow lane mind posts, the advice we hear all the time.
The go to college, the stop buying lattes like David Buck says, the Roth IRA from Sue Zorman, Dave Ramsey's debt snowball. The book argues that while individually these might not be bad advice, together they lock you into this decades-long path.
And it doesn't hold back when it comes to having a job. Calls it a criminal trade. Why so harsh?
Because you're trading your most valuable asset time for a limited amount of money. And those skills you're selling, they can become outdated fast. Think typewriter repairmen, travel agents.
So your job security isn't as secure as you think.
Nope. One company downsizing, one recession, and your whole plan's gone. It's more of a gamble than people realize. And let's not forget the office politics, the suckage, as the book calls it.
Yeah, no matter where you work, there's always some drama. And that whole pay yourself last thing with the job.
The taxes, deductions, a big chunk of your money's gone before you even see it. So even if you're saving, it's from what's left over.
Okay, so let's get into the math of the slow lane. What's the equation here?
It comes down to your intrinsic value, what you can earn per hour or per year. And the problem, time. You can't create more of it. You can't really leverage it. You've got what you've got.
So your income is limited by how many hours you can work.
Exactly. And even if you're saving, it's slow going. What about compound interest? That's the classic get rich slow advice.
Right. Everyone talks about that. What's the book's take?
It doesn't say it's bad, but in the slow lane, it takes forever. Like the book uses this example of investing $1,000 in the S&P 500 back in 1940, ending up with a big amount by 2011. But it's like, who's got 70 years to wait?
So yeah, compound interest works, but not on a human timescale.
Exactly. And it gets to this idea, in the slow lane, time is a liability. You're constantly trading it for money. But in the fast lane, time is an asset.
And the book also talks about the whole get more education, increase your value thing.
Yeah, that's still the slow lane. You might get a raise, but you're still trading time for money, like getting a project management certificate or whatever. It takes time, money, and you're still bound by that hourly rate or salary.
Then there's this thing called the paradox of practice, which sounds kind of deep.
It is. It's basically questioning those financial gurus who preach the get rich slow gospel. Are they actually getting rich that way? Or are they using fast lane methods like selling books, seminars, while telling everyone else to do something different?
Like Sue Zorman and Robert Kiyosaki. Are they really that rich just from bonds and real estate? Or is it the books and games they're selling?
Makes you think, right? Okay, so the slow lane also comes with its own set of dangers. What are we talking about here?
The book outlines 7. 5 you can't control: health, job security, taxes, inflation, and just random life events. The other 2 are within your control: your lifestyle choices and, well, making excuses. Yeah. Okay, so now let's get into the slow lane's wealth equation and its limitations.
Sure. The slow lane wealth equation is fundamentally tied to your perceived intrinsic value in the job market. It can either be your hourly rate or your annual salary. The biggest limitation here is the finite nature of time. You only have so many hours in a day to exchange for money.
Got it. So even with rigorous saving, your income is limited by time.
Exactly. So what about compound interest? That's often touted as the cornerstone of get rich slow.
Right, everyone talks about that. What's the book's take on it?
Well, it doesn't say it's inherently bad, but in the slow lane, it takes forever. The book uses the example of investing $1,000 in the S&P 500 back in 1940 and ending up with a considerable amount by 2011. But the point is, who has 70 years to wait?
So compound interest works, but not on a human timescale.
Exactly. It highlights this idea. In the slow lane, time works against you. In the fast lane, time is your ally.
I see. And what about the classic advice of continually increasing your intrinsic value through education and certifications?
Still the slow lane. You might get a raise, but you're still selling your time. For instance, spending time and money on a project management certification. It might get you a better hourly rate or a higher salary, but you're still stuck trading time for money.
It all comes back to time. Then there's this intriguing concept of the paradox of practice. What's that about?
It questions the methods of the financial gurus preaching get rich slow. It suggests they might be using fast lane strategies themselves, selling books, seminars, and building brands while advocating a slower path for others.
It makes you wonder, did people like Sue Zorman and Robert Kiyosaki really build their fortunes solely through bonds and real estate? Or was it the books and games that made them rich?
Food for thought, right? Okay, now let's get into the dangers lurking in the slow lane.
The book lists 7. 5 are uncontrollable: health, job security, taxes, inflation, and unforeseen life events. But 2 are within your control: your lifestyle choices and what it calls lame excuses.
It's true. Sometimes people make excuses for why they're not financially where they want to be.
It makes sense why slow laners focus so much on controlling expenses.
Right. They're trying to control the one thing they can in a system where their income is limited by time.
The book also makes a distinction between slow lane millionaires and the wealth associated with the fast lane.
Think millionaires next door, people who diligently saved and lived frugally for decades. The book points out that $1 million today doesn't necessarily mean you're rich. It might just make you upper middle class.
That explains why lottery winners often go broke.
They try to live a fast lane lifestyle with slow lane funds. It doesn't work.
Makes sense. Now, the book concludes its discussion of the slow lane with an analogy about raffles. Can you explain that?
Sure. The raffle slow lane offers decent odds of winning a modest amount, but you have to wait maybe 40 years. The raffle fast lane has slightly lower odds, but a much bigger payoff in a shorter time, maybe 6 years.
So higher risk, higher reward, but much faster.
Exactly. It all comes down to how much time you're willing to spend. Now let's dive into the fast lane. What are its core principles?
Okay, so we've covered the slow lane pretty thoroughly. What about that fast lane everyone keeps talking about? How's that different?
The fast lane. It's all about being a producer, not just a consumer. Building a business that's got what the book called CUL, control and unlimited leverage. And the goal, rapid wealth creation. You're not trading time for money anymore.
Rapid wealth creation. Now we're talking. And there's this story in the book inspired by a real person who sold their company for $32 million in just 4 years. That's got to be inspiring for anyone stuck in the slow lane.
It shows what's possible, but it also highlights the dedication involved. Long hours, sacrifices, really putting in the work, but the payoff. Light years ahead of the traditional path.
So it's a choice, a different way of living. And the book stresses that the fast lane's set up for wealth. Because you're in control, you can leverage your efforts without being limited by time. That's the big difference from the ULL, uncontrollable limited leverage of a job.
Right. It's like breaking free from that time for money trap. You control the variables, and those variables can scale almost infinitely.
This producer mindset seems crucial. What exactly does that mean, and how's it different from being a consumer?
It's about shifting your thinking. Instead of just buying things, you start creating things that other people value. And that, according to the book, opens your eyes to opportunities you never even saw before. It also makes you way more aware of scams because you understand how value is created.
So it's not just about acquiring stuff. It's about offering solutions.
Exactly, and it changes how you see the world, how you interact with the whole economic system.
Now, what's this wealth acceleration factor, or WAVE? How does that fit in?
WAVE is like a multiplier on your wealth-building efforts. The book compares an engineer saving 10% of their paycheck, getting a typical return, to someone creating a medical device company. The engineer's WAVE is small, maybe 8%, but the entrepreneur with the right product and market could see a WAVE of like 1,700%. That's the power of building something valuable that can be scaled.
So it's not just about saving money. It's about creating something that has the potential to explode in value.
Exactly. And that brings us to liquidation events. That's the fast lane exit strategy.
At those.
It's when you cash out, sell your business, take your profits, and that's where you see that rapid wealth creation happening.
Okay, so how do you actually build wealth in the fast lane? The book mentions these money tree seedlings. What are we talking about?
These are the systems that, once you set them up, can generate income without you needing to be there all the time. Like, think rental properties. Those are Wealth 1.0, according to the book. Then there are computer and software systems, content systems like books and digital products, distribution systems for selling and delivering, and human resource systems, which is basically automating your business through people.
And the book gives examples for each, even pointing out that the book itself is a content system.
Right, and it talks about how these systems can combine like blogs, ebooks, online courses, and that's where things get really interesting. The book also mentions lending money, but that's usually funded by wealth created through these other systems.
So it's about building systems that make money while you sleep.
You got it. And that leads us to the law of affection. What's that about?
Right. Now, what about the law of affection? That seems like a key idea.
The more people you impact, either in terms of how many people you reach or how deeply you impact them, the richer you'll become. It's about scale and magnitude.
So help a lot of people a little, or help a few people a lot.
Exactly. And to do that effectively, the book talks about the importance of owning a corporation.
Right. The book's big on that. Why is it so important?
It's about protecting yourself and your assets. A corporation, whether it's C Corp, S Corp, or LLC, limits your personal liability. It also gives you tax advantages. The author's totally against sole proprietorships or partnerships because you're putting everything on the line personally.
So incorporate or die, basically.
Pretty much. And once you've got your corporation set up, you need to be making good choices. The book talks about treasonous choices. What are those?
Makes sense. And the book emphasizes that success in the fast lane isn't just about one big win. It's about making a lot of good choices over time.
It's a process, a journey.
Yeah.
And yeah, the book also talks about treasonous choices, those decisions that can completely derail your progress.
What are some examples?
Think major screw-ups with lasting consequences. The author talks about getting a speeding ticket, which, while not life-ending, showed him the impact of bad choices. He then gives this fictional example of a drunk driver causing a fatal accident. And then there's the real-life case of Michael Vick, whose actions destroyed his career and reputation.
So it's about recognizing those high-stakes decisions and avoiding them. The book also mentions the butterfly effect, how even small choices can have a big impact over time.
Right, like those tiny course corrections that end up making a huge difference down the line.
And it distinguishes between choices of perception and choices of action. The Lamborghini story from the beginning comes up again, highlighting how a powerful belief can shape your entire life.
That early belief in achieving wealth young, it influenced all the choices he made later on.
Now, to help make better choices, the book introduces this tool called the Weighted Average Decision Matrix, or WADM. What's that all about?
It's basically a way to analyze your decisions, weigh the pros and cons, and figure out which option best aligns with your goals. You assign a weight to each factor and then see which choice scores highest.
Makes sense. But building a fast-lane business isn't always easy, right? The book talks about flatulent headwinds. What are those?
Those are the things working against you, making the journey tougher. It's like flying a plane into a headwind. The book gives examples like a negative environment where people don't support your ambitions, a soul-sucking job that drains your energy, or just being surrounded by negative people.
So how do you combat those headwinds? The book talks about creating accelerative wins, right?
So you got to surround yourself with the right people, those who believe in you and push you forward. It's like building a team of warriors, as the book says. The author even talks about a relationship that ended because of differing mindsets, Slowlane versus Fastlane. It shows how mismatched relationships can hold you back.
The people you spend time with, they have a huge impact on your journey. And speaking of time, the book has a pretty interesting perspective on that.
It contrasts the scarcity of time with the abundance of money. You can always make more money, but time. Once it's gone, it's gone. The question is, are you spending your time wisely?
And it differentiates between right time and wrong time, right?
Right time is your free time, the time you control. Wrong time is the time you're obligated to spend, usually at a job. The fast lane's all about maximizing that right time by building systems that generate income without you needing to be there all the time.
So it's about working smarter, not harder. And the book talks about parasitic debt, how they can really weigh you down.
This is debt that doesn't help you build wealth. It just sucks money out of your life. Car loans, mortgages on stuff that loses value, credit card debt from lifestyle spending. It's the junk in the trunk, as the book calls it.
And that junk forces you to work more to pay it off,
Yeah.
which means less right time. It's a vicious cycle.
Totally. To break it, the book talks about the law of chocolate chip cookies. It's simple. Remove the temptation, and you're less likely to give in. So if you don't want to eat cookies, don't keep them in the house. Same with spending. Control your urge for instant gratification, and you'll avoid that parasitic debt.
Sounds easier said than done, but I get the principle.
Yeah.
Now, what about education? What role does that play in the fast lane?
It's huge. Continuous self-directed learning. Not just formal education, but learning stuff that's relevant to your fast lane goals. The author learned computer programming online to build his internet businesses, even though he had traditional business degrees. The point is, there's so much knowledge available, often for free, online and in libraries.
And it introduces these life university strategies.
Yeah, turning wasted time into learning opportunities, listening to audiobooks or podcasts during your commute, while working out, even while waiting in line. It's about constantly feeding your mind.
Makes sense. And then there's this piece of advice that stands out. Distance yourself from most people. Why is that?
Most people are consumers, risk-averse, easily discouraged. To succeed in the fast lane, you need to think differently. You have to be willing to make sacrifices, work long hours, live frugally. That red-lined effort is part of the process. You can't skip it.
It's about playing a different game. And failure. The book doesn't shy away from that either.
It embraces it. Failure's a learning experience. The author shares his own failures, the lessons he learned. He talks about intelligent risks versus moronic risks. Even quitting your job to pursue your fast lane business can be an intelligent risk if you've done your homework.
So it's about calculated risks, not just blindly jumping into anything.
Exactly. And the book stresses the importance of taking action now.
Right. No more waiting for the perfect time.
Timing is rarely perfect, the book says. Waiting just leads to mediocrity. Now, the book defines the road differently for slow laners and fast laners. What's the difference?
Okay, so the book talks about the road to wealth being different for slow laners and fast laners. How so?
For slow laners, the road is their job. For fast laners, it's their business. But the road has to actually lead to wealth. And a lot of jobs, even some businesses, don't because they either can't scale or they don't solve a big enough problem.
It's not enough to just have a job or a business. It has to have the potential to create real wealth. And the book then shifts focus from chasing money to fulfilling needs. Why is that?
Because businesses that are just about making money often fail. They're not solving a problem. They're not adding value. The book uses this example of a guy who opens a martial arts studio because he loves martial arts, but there's no real demand.
So find a need and fill it. Don't just chase money for the sake of it.
Exactly. Money follows value. The more value you create for others, the more money you'll make.
And it distinguishes between love and passion as fuel for your business.
A lot of people say do what you love, but the book argues that what really matters is passion for the end goal, the why behind what you're doing.
So it's not about loving every task. It's about being driven by a bigger vision.
Exactly. Doing what you love can sometimes violate the commandment of need, which brings us to the 5 Fastlane commandments. What are those?
Okay, these sound important. What are they?
They're like filters for evaluating business ideas. The commandment of need. Does your business solve a real problem? The commandment of entry. Is there a barrier to entry, something that makes it hard for others to copy you? The commandment of control. Do you own and control your business? The commandment of scale. Can your business impact a lot of people? And the commandment of time. Can your business make money without you constantly working?
Let's break those down a bit. The commandment of entry, the book, says network marketing often fails this. Why?
Unless you're the one at the top, it's too easy to join, too much competition. You're just another soldier, not the pyramid builder. Same with things like currency trading. It's accessible, but most people don't make real money.
So if everyone's doing it, it might not be the best path to wealth.
Right. What about the commandment of control? Why is that so important?
Right, so if everyone's doing it, it might not be the best path to wealth. And what about the commandment of control? Why is that one so crucial?
Because you need to be the one calling the shots. Franchises, distributorships. You give up too much control. The author even talks about a bad MLM experience where changes to the product and compensation plan screwed over his friend. The book's big on being the driver, not the hitchhiker. You gotta own your business, build your brand, not someone else's.
So no more putting your fate in someone else's hands. And what about that big money, that legendary money the book talks about? What prevents businesses from achieving that level of impact?
2 main things: lack of scale and lack of magnitude. Scale means how many people you can reach. Magnitude is how much profit you make per unit sold. A coffee shop might have decent magnitude, but limited scale. Buying franchises can address scale, but selling them is even better. High magnitude jobs, like being a doctor, don't necessarily translate to fast-lane wealth if you lack control and scalability.
And the goal is to disconnect time from income, even if you're not making a ton of money at first.
Exactly. Working less for a good income is better than working more for a slightly better income that's still tied to your time. The book tells this story about a woman, Ashlyn, who opens a coffee shop because she loves coffee. But the business ends up owning her. She can't scale, can't detach her time.
Doing what you love doesn't guarantee financial freedom.
Nope. Most businesses fail the commandment of time. That's why the book talks about fast-lane purity.
What's that?
It's when a business meets all 5 commandments. The limousine service example we talked about earlier didn't. But internet businesses, if they're scalable and automated, they can achieve purity. Brick-and-mortar businesses, manufacturing, inventing, licensing, distribution. There are lots of possibilities.
So it's about finding the right business model, one that fits the fast lane principles.
Exactly. The book encourages you to find your open road. Opportunities are everywhere. You just have to look for them.
And the book stresses that opportunities aren't always about inventing something new.
Right. It's often about solving a problem that already exists, making something better, or providing better service. Think Netflix and Redbox or craft breweries. They saw open roads where others saw dead ends.
So look around. What are people complaining about? What frustrates you? Those are potential opportunities. The author even talks about his experience with canker sores.
He turned a personal annoyance into a business opportunity. It's about looking at the world differently. Okay, so you found your open road, you've got an idea. How do you set financial targets?
Okay, so let's say you found your open road, you've got a business idea. How do you